Hello Golden State Warriors fans. We are here once again to bring you the latest news related to our team, and I would like to emphasize how committed we are to improving our performance to achieve great results. Before we dive into this intriguing news, I kindly request you to show your support by clicking the like button, and if you are not yet subscribed to our channel, I invite you all to join us on an exciting journey. Remember to turn on notifications so you don't miss anything.
Jonathan Kuminga wants more control than the Warriors are willing to give. And now we've hit a stalemate. It's been about a month since Jonathan Kuminga entered free agency for the first time in his career, and for most of that time, things have been eerily quiet. The pattern has been typical of tense negotiations. Golden State wants one thing, Kuminga wants another, and both sides have been exploring alternative paths, mostly in the form of sign-and-trade options. But recently, some of the real details behind this standoff have begun to surface. We've always known that money and role were key factors. Now we're learning about a third crucial piece of the puzzle: control. According to reporting from Shams Charania and Anthony Slater, props to Slater on his move to ESPN, Kuminga recently turned down a 2-year, $45 million offer from the Warriors. On the surface, that number might seem reasonable, but it's the structure of the deal that raised red flags. The offer included a team option in the second year and no trade clause protections. In other words, the Warriors wanted flexibility. Kuminga? He wants stability, and the ability to control more of his own future. And honestly, who can blame him? His camp reportedly countered with a 3-year, $82 million deal, structured in a way that would help Golden State stay under the second apron and preserve their taxpayer mid-level exception. So far, the Warriors haven't bitten. Maybe they think the price is too steep, or maybe they're just unwilling to give up leverage. Interestingly, the Phoenix Suns are said to have made a $90 million offer over 4 years, though it would have required a sign-and-trade, meaning the Warriors would still have to play ball. And if another team does manage to send Kuminga a direct offer, a long shot under current cap restrictions, Golden State has the right to match it, since he's a restricted free agent. At this point, one thing's clear: Kuminga is betting on himself. He believes in his value, not just as a player, but as someone who deserves a voice in how his career unfolds. Unless the Warriors shift their stance, he might just take that bet all the way. The most likely outcome still feels like a return to Golden State, but probably not on terms that Kuminga will be thrilled about. Jonathan Kuminga wants more control than the Warriors are willing to give, continued. Now new layers to this story are coming into focus, and they're starting to send ripples through the rest of the league. A rising market and trade talks in limbo. Several teams have expressed serious interest in Kuminga, including the Sacramento Kings and Phoenix Suns. Phoenix reportedly floated a 4-year, $90 million offer in a potential sign-and-trade. Sacramento, meanwhile, has engaged in discussions centered around veteran guard Malik Monk and future draft compensation. However, the Warriors appear hesitant to move forward unless they receive unprotected assets in return, something the Kings aren't currently offering. Despite exploring these options, Golden State has reportedly begun pulling back on trade talks, signaling that they may be prepared to let Kuminga choose between accepting their 2-year offer or playing under the 1-year qualifying offer worth $7.9 million. That latter option would give Kuminga the right to become an unrestricted free agent next summer, and importantly, give him leverage over where and how he continues his career. Betting on himself. If Kuminga declines all multi-year offers and takes the qualifying offer, it would be a bold move, but not an irrational one. It would allow him full control next offseason, albeit at the cost of guaranteed money in the short term. It's a high-risk, high-reward path. He'd be gambling on himself to have a breakout year, stay healthy, and increase his market value, knowing he'd be free to choose his destination without restrictions in 2026. Not many players go this route. But for someone like Kuminga, 22 years old, with rising production and untapped potential, the bet could pay off big. Front office strategy and financial tensions. From the Warriors' perspective, the hesitation isn't necessarily about Kuminga's talent. They value him, but they also value flexibility. Golden State is trying to avoid being locked into expensive deals that limit their options under the league's restrictive second apron tax rules. A multi-year fully guaranteed contract for Kuminga could make it harder to build a competitive roster around Stephen Curry and Draymond Green. That said, Golden State has been unusually quiet this offseason. No major signings, no significant trades, and many around the league believe the front office is waiting to resolve Kuminga's situation before making further moves. Chemistry and coaching fit. Internally, There are questions about how Kuminga fits long-term with Steve Kerr's system. His shooting remains inconsistent, and his role has fluctuated. At times, he's looked like a future star, at others, like a player still struggling to find his place. If he returns on a short-term deal, the emotional and professional toll of feeling undervalued could affect his performance and the locker room. There's also the risk of misalignment. If the coaching staff doesn't fully buy into him, or if Kuminga feels sidelined again, tensions could build, especially if trade rumors continue to swirl into the regular season. What comes next? The Warriors are walking a tightrope, keeping a talented young player while managing long-term flexibility. Kuminga, meanwhile, is asserting his value, not just financially, but in terms of respect, role, and autonomy. If Golden State refuses to meet him on those terms, he may choose to play the long game. Right now, the most likely outcome remains a return to the Warriors. But unless the team makes meaningful concessions, it could be a temporary reunion, one that leaves both sides looking for a clean break in the near future. Stephen Curry might be Jonathan Kuminga's biggest obstacle at the Warriors, says Richard Jefferson. Jonathan Kuminga's future with the Golden State Warriors remains one of the hottest topics around the NBA. Despite his talent and potential, Kuminga finds himself at a crossroads, and former NBA player Richard Jefferson believes that playing alongside Stephen Curry might actually be holding him back. Kuminga recently turned down a 2-year, $45 million contract extension from the Warriors, signaling that he may be looking for a change. But so far, there's no clear path forward. Golden State has rejected all sign-and-trade offers, including ones from the Phoenix Suns and Sacramento Kings, citing a lack of valuable return. The Brooklyn Nets have been mentioned as a possible landing spot, but there's been no recent sign of interest from their side either. As the off-season drags on, both sides remain stuck in a stalemate. And according to Jefferson, the real challenge for Kuminga might lie in trying to thrive next to a generational superstar like Stephen Curry. Curry's brilliance makes adaptation harder. Jefferson argues that Kuminga's struggle isn't about talent, it's about fit. He compares Kuminga to Phoenix's Draymond Green, saying both players have sky-high potential but still need time to truly learn the game at the NBA level. That process gets tougher in systems built around once-in-a-lifetime talents like Curry. I look at Draymond Green, all the talent in the world, but he still needs more reps, more time to learn how to really play basketball, Jefferson explained. I see Jonathan Kuminga in a very similar light. And when you're playing next to Steph Curry, who's one of the most unique players ever, it's like trying to play in a jazz band when you've only ever practiced scales. There's a flow, a rhythm, a feel, and Steph sees things before they even happen. The Warriors system isn't built for young development. What makes Curry so effective, his fluidity, movement, and IQ, also makes it incredibly tough for developing players to keep up. Jefferson points out that the Warriors system demands an extremely high basketball IQ, especially because the offense is designed to maximize Curry's strengths. You need to be incredibly sharp just to stay in sync, Jefferson said. It's not that Kuminga lacks basketball IQ, but he's still learning. And not every young player can quickly adapt to that system. He references James Wiseman as another highly drafted player who struggled to adjust to Steve Kerr's offense, ultimately leading to his departure from Golden State. The pattern is becoming clear. Young talent often gets squeezed out when their development needs don't align with a championship-driven culture. Is Kuminga's growth being stifled? Jefferson believes Kuminga might be trying to prove himself in the wrong environment. He suggests that while Kuminga has all-star potential, realizing that potential may require a change of scenery. There's a disconnect, Jefferson said. I think Kuminga is an all-star caliber player, but what he wants to become doesn't quite align with what the Warriors need right now. In other words, Kuminga might need a team that values player growth over instant results, a place where he can be unleashed instead of molded into a role that doesn't fully fit him. A new environment could unlock Kuminga's star power. Jefferson's insight captures a broader truth about today's NBA. Balancing immediate success with long-term player development isn't easy, especially when dealing with rising stars who don't quite fit the mold of a championship system. For Kuminga, a move to a team focused more on development than titles could unlock the player many believe he can become. The Warriors may be focused on winning now, but somewhere else, Kuminga might finally get the space and the system to thrive. Growing tensions behind the scenes. Sources close to the situation say the frustration isn't one-sided. While Kuminga is eager for a bigger role and a clearer developmental path, there's growing concern within the Warriors organization about his long-term commitment and attitude. After showing flashes of brilliance last season, including a strong post-All-Star break stretch, many believed Kuminga had turned a corner. But his desire to bet on himself and decline a lucrative extension speaks volumes. For a franchise that has built its identity around loyalty, unselfishness, and continuity, Kuminga's stance is seen by some insiders as a sign that the gap between player and team philosophy is widening. Locker room dynamics. Is there a rift? While no public conflicts have been reported, the chemistry behind closed doors may be less than ideal. Several league analysts speculate that Kuminga's situation could quietly be affecting team morale. With Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green entering the twilight of their careers, the Warriors face a difficult transition phase, one that requires blending veteran leadership with a new generation of talent. That blending hasn't been seamless. It's not about ego. It's about identity, said one Western Conference scout. Kuminga wants to be a centerpiece. But the Warriors aren't structured to give him that right now. That doesn't mean he's wrong. It just means it's probably not the right fit, at least not today. The Warriors' dilemma: rebuild or reload. Golden State is now standing at a fork in the road. Do they continue to chase another title with their aging core, or start gradually pivoting toward a youth movement built around players like Kuminga and Moses Moody? The front office's hesitation to trade Kuminga outright suggests they still believe in his upside, or at the very least, in his trade value. But they've also been reluctant to hand him the keys. The longer this impasse drags on, the harder it becomes to justify keeping him on a roster where his growth feels stunted. Some have floated the idea of involving Kuminga in a larger blockbuster deal, potentially as a key piece in a trade for another established star. But with limited offers on the table and few teams willing to give up marquee players for a still developing forward, that option appears unlikely in the short term. Around the league, who's watching? Multiple teams are reportedly monitoring the situation closely. The Orlando Magic, Toronto Raptors, and Utah Jazz are believed to have internally discussed potential frameworks to acquire Kuminga should the Warriors eventually pivot to a rebuild or a retool. So far, the Phoenix Suns and Sacramento Kings have been the most aggressive, but Golden State's unwillingness to settle for subpar assets has slowed talks. They're not just trying to dump him, one executive said. They know he could come back to haunt them. What's next for Kuminga? Until something changes, whether it's a trade, a contract breakthrough, or a shift in role, Kuminga finds himself in limbo, too talented to be ignored, but not yet in a position to take the leap he's aiming for. Jefferson's analysis touches a nerve across the league. How many other young players might be held back by circumstance rather than skill? In the end, Kuminga's story could become a case study in how NBA careers are shaped not just by talent, but by timing, fit, and the invisible forces behind team dynamics. Whether he thrives in Golden State or elsewhere, the league is watching, and so is he. Too far gone, Warriors may face nightmare scenario with Jonathan Kuminga. The Golden State Warriors may be heading toward a difficult and potentially damaging situation with one of their most promising young stars. So far, the Warriors have been eerily quiet this offseason. Despite clear holes in their roster and a pressing need for change, the front office has made zero moves. No trades, no signings, no upgrades. And there's a reason why. His name is Jonathan Kuminga. The 21-year-old forward has essentially frozen Golden State's offseason. As a restricted free agent, Kuminga has yet to agree to an extension, and his situation is now holding up the entire operation. Kuminga rejected a $45 million offer, and wants more. This week, the Warriors reportedly offered Kuminga a 2-year, $45 million contract extension. But Kuminga and his camp turned it down, signaling that he's seeking a deal in the $30 million per year range, far beyond what Golden State was willing to offer. And now, a standoff has begun. Kuminga's side is standing firm, and even if the Warriors manage to bring him back next season, the damage may already be done. According to ESPN's Zach Lowe, the relationship between Kuminga and the franchise is deteriorating fast, and may already be beyond repair. Zach Lowe, that bridge might be burning. On a recent episode of The Lowe Post, Zach Lowe didn't mince words about where things stand between Kuminga and the Warriors. If there's any hope left for the Warriors to salvage not just the final years of the Steph Curry era, but also what was supposed to be the two-timeline plan, it hinges on Kuminga's rise, and that just doesn't seem likely right now, Lowe said. That bridge is burning, if not already burned. Kuminga may end up being nothing more than a trade asset, one they're now struggling to flip into anything meaningful. Golden State has fielded offers from teams like the Sacramento Kings and Phoenix Suns, But according to Lowe, the Warriors simply aren't impressed by what's being offered in return. They're not in love with those players, Lowe noted. And honestly, they shouldn't be. None of those guys are going to change the Warriors' future. Worse yet, this may have all gone too far already. A nightmare scenario on the horizon. The situation could spiral into something much worse. Lowe warned that if no trade materializes, Kuminga might be forced to return to the Warriors under his $7.9 million qualifying offer, which includes a no-trade clause. That would lock him in for a year, but give him control over any trade, while setting him up to hit unrestricted free agency in 2026. That's a lose-lose scenario. Kuminga's role with the Warriors has never been consistent enough to boost his trade value to where it needs to be, Lowe said. And I honestly think this qualifying offer could be a nightmare, maybe even more so for the Warriors than for Kuminga. Golden State would be paying a disgruntled player $7 million to stick around for one more awkward season, with no guarantee of long-term payoff. Worse, if they let him walk for nothing next summer, they lose both a talented player and a valuable asset. How did it get to this point? In many ways, the Warriors created this mess themselves. By failing to define Kuminga's role, by hesitating to choose a clear direction, youth versus title contention, they've left one of their most important pieces dangling in uncertainty. Now they're playing hardball with a player who feels undervalued, underutilized, and increasingly frustrated. And instead of negotiating from a position of strength, they're stuck. The longer this standoff drags on, the harder it will be to salvage the situation. Hope for a resolution, before it's too late. There's still time to fix things. But it's slipping away. Whether it means resetting expectations, finding the right trade, or, perhaps most importantly, choosing a direction, the Warriors need clarity. Kuminga does too. Right now, both sides are stuck in a cycle of hesitation and mistrust, and the clock is ticking. What was once supposed to be a bridge to the future could now be the very thing that keeps the Warriors from moving forward. Internal pressure mounting within the organization. Behind closed doors, sources say there's growing tension within the Warriors' front office and coaching staff about how to handle the Kuminga situation. Some believe the team should commit to him as a foundational piece and give him the offensive freedom he's been asking for. Others argue the franchise can't afford to risk another season of underperformance while trying to force a developmental leap that might never come. Steve Kerr, known for his loyalty to his veterans and a motion-heavy system designed around Stephen Curry's strengths, hasn't consistently offered Kuminga the kind of defined role or minutes that would allow him to grow into his full potential. That inconsistency has bred frustration. From two timelines to total uncertainty. It's important to remember, Kuminga was drafted as a pillar of the Warriors' now infamous two-timeline strategy, a bold experiment meant to extend the dynasty while simultaneously grooming the next generation of stars. But that plan has largely unraveled. James Wiseman was traded. Jordan Poole was shipped out. Moses Moody remains on shaky ground. And now Kuminga, arguably the most promising of the group, could be the next domino to fall. The Warriors are no longer trying to balance two timelines. They're clinging to one, Steph Curry's, and the clock is ticking. Around the NBA, mixed signals, measured interest. League executives are watching this standoff closely, but interest in Kuminga is complicated. On one hand, teams see an explosive 21-year-old forward who averaged 16.1 points, 4.8 rebounds, and shot 53% from the field after the All-Star break last season. On the other, there are questions about his maturity, consistency, and ability to thrive outside of the Warriors' unique system. The Orlando Magic, Toronto Raptors, and Utah Jazz have all reportedly expressed quiet interest, but no serious talks have advanced. The Sacramento Kings and Phoenix Suns submitted offers that were declined by Golden State, likely because they didn't include the kind of win-now pieces the Warriors would demand in return. One executive told The Athletic, "Everyone likes Kuminga, just not at the price Golden State wants. And certainly not without knowing what version of him they're getting." Curry's legacy hanging in the balance? While Kuminga's contract drama plays out, one unavoidable question looms. How does this affect Stephen Curry? Now entering his 17th NBA season, Curry remains elite, but he needs help, not more drama. Every wasted season is a missed opportunity to capitalize on the final chapters of his Hall of Fame career. And if the Warriors are unable to resolve the Kuminga dilemma, it could mark another year lost to indecision. This standoff doesn't just impact the future. It directly affects the present. If Kuminga walks for nothing, the Warriors lose a key asset with no real replacement in sight. If they trade him for a less-than-ideal package, they may waste one of their last chances to upgrade the roster. And if they keep him under the qualifying offer, they risk internal chemistry issues and a disgruntled player in the locker room. What comes next? There are a few paths forward, none perfect. Re-sign Kuminga at or near his asking price and commit to him as a key piece of the rotation, hoping he develops fast enough to contribute to winning now. Trade him in a multi-team deal that brings back a win-now player, even if it means taking a loss in asset value. Let him play out the qualifying offer, risking a tumultuous season and eventual departure in free agency. Every option carries risk, and none guarantee harmony. But the worst-case scenario? Doing nothing and watching another young talent slip away, this time, with Curry still on the court and the window still technically open. Final thoughts. The Jonathan Kuminga situation has evolved into something far bigger than a contract dispute. It's now a litmus test for how the Warriors handle transition, talent, and the tension between legacy and the future. They've walked this tightrope before. But this time, there may not be a safety net. Suns trade offer for Warriors Jonathan Kuminga revealed, and it's not pretty. The situation between Jonathan Kuminga and the Golden State Warriors has become more complicated by the day, and now we're finally getting a clearer picture of what's happening behind the scenes. Kuminga, still a restricted free agent, remains in limbo as the Warriors and his camp remain far apart on contract negotiations. Sources say Kuminga is seeking a larger payday than the Warriors are willing to offer, and truthfully, neither side seems eager to continue the relationship. A clean break and a fresh start somewhere else appears to be the most realistic and mutually beneficial solution. In response, Golden State has begun exploring sign-and-trade scenarios, hoping to move Kuminga to a team willing to invest in his upside. Several teams have expressed interest, including the Chicago Bulls, Sacramento Kings, and Phoenix Suns. But so far, none of the offers have moved the needle, especially in the eyes of the Warriors' front office. According to Shams Charania and Anthony Slater of ESPN, the Suns have made what's reportedly the most aggressive sign-and-trade push for Kuminga. And now, thanks to reporting from Mark J. Spears, we know exactly what Phoenix is offering. I'm hearing the Suns are offering Royce O'Neal, Nick Richards, and 4 second-round picks, Spears said on NBA Today. That's not exactly an eye-popping package. To put it bluntly, the Warriors aren't impressed. They've made it clear, while they won't overpay to keep Kuminga, they're also not going to give him away for spare parts. From their perspective, the Suns' offer falls short on both talent and long-term value. Caught in the middle. This tug-of-war has left Kuminga stuck in an awkward spot. On one hand, he's a high-upside 21-year-old forward who's shown flashes of stardom, a player who could thrive with a new system and a larger role. On the other hand, the Warriors are holding firm on his perceived value, even though his trade market hasn't been as strong as they once believed. Therein lies the problem. If Golden State waits too long and the market continues to cool, they may get nothing in return. And for a former top 10 pick who still has room to grow, that would be a bitter outcome for a franchise that's already lost young talent in recent years. What's next? The clock is ticking, and both sides know it. The longer the standoff drags on, the more the Warriors risk losing leverage, and the more Kuminga's camp grows frustrated with the stalemate. The Suns may revisit their offer with slight improvements, or another team may step in with a more appealing package. But unless something changes soon, the Warriors could be forced to choose between taking less than they hoped, or losing a young asset for nothing. Kuminga wants a new opportunity. The Warriors want fair value. But in today's market, those two things may not align, and the consequences could shape both their futures. The ripples beyond the trade talk. The implications of this ongoing Kuminga standoff go far beyond just one player and one contract. For the Warriors, who are in a delicate phase of balancing veteran championship aspirations with the need to develop young talent, this situation highlights a broader challenge: how to manage a roster in transition. Golden State's hesitance to move Kuminga for what they see as undervalued returns speaks to their desire to build a sustainable future. But the reality is that the longer this drags on, the more it risks backfiring. If Kuminga starts the season disgruntled or worse, sidelined, it could disrupt team chemistry and morale, two intangible factors critical for a team with title ambitions. For the Suns, their offer reveals something important about their current roster strategy. Offering multiple second-round picks and role players like Royce O'Neal and Nick Richards suggests they're taking a low-risk gamble on potential upside rather than going all in for a sure star. It also reflects the salary cap constraints and roster-building puzzle Phoenix is facing. Meanwhile, Kuminga himself is watching closely. This is a critical moment in his young career. The opportunity to find a team that will give him consistent minutes and a clear role could make or break his trajectory in the NBA. His preferred destination isn't just about money, it's about development, fit, and future success. League-wide perspectives. Across the league, executives and insiders are watching the situation unfold as a cautionary tale about managing young restricted free agents. The balance between paying for potential versus performance is tricky, especially when players and teams have different visions for the future. Some NBA analysts argue the Warriors might need to reconsider their valuation of Kuminga, especially if the market continues to cool. Others believe that patience might pay off if Kuminga's value rebounds with a strong start to the season. One thing is clear, the NBA landscape is shifting, and situations like Kuminga's are becoming more common. With rookie contracts, extensions, and player empowerment becoming bigger factors, teams must adapt quickly or risk losing valuable assets for less than they deserve. What to watch next? Will the Warriors soften their trade demands or continue to hold out for a better offer? Can the Suns or another interested team come back with a more enticing package? How will Kuminga respond? Will he keep his focus sharp amid the uncertainty, or will frustration take its toll? And ultimately, what does this mean for the Warriors' championship window and rebuilding timeline? As the new NBA season approaches, all eyes will be on Golden State and Jonathan Kuminga, a relationship at a crossroads, with big stakes for both the player's future and the franchise's direction.